The Ponca City School Board for our April 8th meeting. Will you please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brett?
Pray with me. Father, we thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed on us each and every day. We want to thank you for this past school year, as it has been successful in so many ways for our students and our staff. Students have made so many accomplishments and strides in their scholastic and extracurricular activities. And thank you for the staff who facilitated their successes. Thank you for the good weather. We ask that you support the communities around the United States who experience losses because of severe weather. And please be with our city, state, nation, and the world leaders as they make decisions affecting the people they lead. And finally, please be with our men and women of the armed forces as they serve to protect us here at home and abroad. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call.
Dr. Kincaid?
Here.
Mr. Newsom?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Mrs. Troop? Mrs. Zimmershed?
Here.
Thank you. Next will be the oath of office for the board member, Mr. Dr. David Kincaid. You take care of that up front, please.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I hereby declare under oath
I hereby declare under oath
that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of member of the Board of Education
the duties of member of the Board of Education
of the Ponca City Schools of Ponca City,
of Ponca City Schools of Ponca City,
Oklahoma, to the best of my ability.
Oklahoma, to the best of my ability.
Was that me? And that I will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
all the duties pertaining to said office
all the duties pertaining to said office,
and obey the Constitution and laws
obey the Constitution and laws
of the United States and of Oklahoma.
of the United States and Oklahoma.
You're hereby sworn in, but there's a written oath you need to sign somewhere. Well, you already did? Okay.
Okay, so at this time, typically when we have a board member take an oath of office, we need to elect new officers for the board. So I would like to accept nominations for president of the board.
I move that we recommend Robin Riley for president of the board.
Okay, Robin Riley has been nominated.
I will second that. Oh. Wait.
He can't.
Seconded by Nancy Zimmershed. And roll call.
Okay. Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
You're it, babe.
Unanimous.
Come on.
I just stay here.
We'll swap.
I forgot it.
We don't want you.
Okay, the next order of business is we have to elect a vice president, a clerk, and a deputy clerk. Betty has been serving as the clerk. Kathy Conrad's been serving as the deputy clerk. So at this time, I would accept the nominations for the vice president. Shelley also recommends that Kathy and Betty retain their existing positions. So we're looking for nominations for vice president, clerk, and deputy clerk of the board.
I move that we nominate Nancy Zimmershed for vice president.
Okay, we have a nomination for vice president of Nancy. Now we need a nomination for the clerk and the deputy clerk.
Betty Johnson is clerk and Kathy Conrad as our deputy clerk.
Okay, so we have nominations for the clerk being Betty Johnson, Kathy Conrad being the deputy clerk. Are there any other nominations? Roll call, please.
Need a second.
Need a second?
Second.
You can second.
David
Can I
needs to.
second that with me?
Yeah, I'll second what, yeah, Don
Okay,
said.
thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Hi.
Okay, so Nancy's the vice president. Betty and Kathy continue in their present roles. So with that out of the way, we'll now go to the presentation and the recognitions. First one will be the Certified Employee of the Month. It is Julie Logan, second grade teacher at Lincoln School.
Julie Logan is a gentle, dedicated teacher who does not ponder on complaining. Instead, she focuses on her students and is always searching for new ways to keep them involved in their studies. When you find a teacher who worries about whether she has done all that she could for her students, then you know that you found that rare teacher whose only concern at school is for her students' education. Julie treats all of her students with love and compassion, even the difficult ones, as if they were her own family. Julie is an outstanding teacher, and she deserves this recognition. Congratulations, Julie.
Our next recognition will be the Support Employee of the Month for April, Betty Jones, custodian at East Middle School.
All right. Betty has had to fill large shoes during this time. We had our head custodian there that is out on some sick leave, so she's been filling the spot very well. As the daytime custodian, she has really filled the position well. She's diligent, attentive to all aspects of the job. She checks to ensure her staff has done as expected to make sure the building is safe and ready for students, staff, and patrons entering into the school. She has helped remove snow from the sidewalks, cleaned and polished the entries. She is out in the hallways ever present during class change periods, checking the schools, making sure they're looking good. Betty cares about our building and the people. She takes time to stop and talk with us, greeting us with a wonderful, smiling face each day. Congratulations, Betty.
Our next award will be the Friends of Education for April. It is Miss Karen Hunt, volunteer at West Middle School.
Karen Hunt has been nominated for the Award of Friend of Education for West Middle School. Karen is a parent volunteer that gives of her time very generously. She has dedicated one day a week to coming in to help the Jaguar team teachers and other teachers who need it. Karen has done more than volunteer her time one day a week. She came in for a whole day to pop popcorn for all the students at West. She has also provided supervision on the team's fall field trip this year and even provided lunch for the entire staff. And she's not finished yet because she's going to help me with teacher appreciation. She's been a huge help for the Jaguar team and West Middle School, and we are so glad to have her be a part of our West family. Congratulations.
For those that were at last month's meeting, our friend of education, Blackwell Dentistry, was unavailable to attend. So at this point, we're going to make an award to Dr. Aaron Neal for the Blackwell Dentistry last month's friend of education. I think Curtis is going to present it. So we got a special treat. We got 2 friends of education this month.
And And I get to present this tonight because this came from multiple sites, not just did this at Trout, but we had multiple nominations. It is an honor to present Blackwell Dentistry with the March Friend of Education Award. The purpose of this award is to celebrate people outside our school system that volunteer their time to make our schools stronger. Dr. Aaron Neal and his staff have spread their generosity throughout Ponca City schools. Dr. Neal offered exams to every elementary student in Ponca City this year. They completed exams at Garfield, Liberty, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Trout, and Union. In addition, they have presented dental health programs at several schools. Blackwell Dentistry has been an active PIE partner for East throughout the year. They generously donated a refrigerator to the Family Consumer Science class at East, and East is extremely thankful for the donation from Dr. Neal and his wife, Catherine. We are very thankful for Friends of Education like Blackwell Dentistry who use their resources to support schools that are not even in their own town. Thank you for supporting Team PCPS. Congratulations.
I also would like to thank the 4 recipients, Julie, Betty, Karen, and Dr. Neal. And if you all want to go outside, get your picture taken, then you're more than welcome to stay, or you can go ahead and leave afterwards. But we want to go ahead and be sure and get your picture taken. We'll put it in the Ponca City newspaper.
Congratulations.
Assuming we
Thank
have
you
a
for all you do.
photographer.
He's back in the little sound engineer room, so he will meet them out there.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a special presentation from the Garfield Elementary 3rd grade Underground Railroad, led by Nicole McMurray and Jacqueline Cole. So this is your chance to perform, kids.
You know when I said this one?
Is it squeaky? Switch it out. He said the chair's worn out. What'd you do to it?
Pushed it down.
Okay. Hello. I'm Nicole McMurray. I teach art at Garfield Elementary. That's Jackie Cole. She teaches music. We have a little bit of both for you tonight. I have 4 kids. 2 boys couldn't show up, so we have Journey filling in. This is Maritza, and that is Brooklyn. We did a sgraffito art project, which is the process of scratching off the top layer of something to show what's underneath. We used crayon underneath and then black acrylic paint. We each designed a quilt from the Underground Railroad, and they kind of added their own touches. So they'll tell you what each quote is from. In the Underground Railroad, they would hang quilts to communicate with slaves, and different patterns meant different things. So I'll start with Severin's. His was a bow tie pattern, and this meant that slaves would have to dress in disguise to travel. Maritza.
Representing free African American were secretly hiding and transforming runaways. My pattern represents stars. Many runaways traveled at night and used stars to navigate their way along the route.
My pattern is called the Monkey Ranch. It is signed for slaves to be prepared to escape by collecting tools for their journey.
And Ms. McMurray, you might show the board too. Turn those around so the board.
Ooh, nice.
Nice, good job.
Cool.
Those are neat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we are going to perform Follow the Drinking Gourd. This is a code song which would also communicate to slaves on the Underground Railroad.
One.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. McMurray and Ms. Cole and Garfield students. What a treat
Good
for us
job.
tonight.
Awesome.
Good job.
Good.
Okay, I want all you Garfield kids to remember your two teachers' names. And the reason I want you to do that, back a long time ago, actually in the 1950s, I was a third grader at Garfield, and I had Mrs. Skillern for art and Mrs. LeBlue for music.
You still remember?
And I still remember it. That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for coming.
long time.
A long time. Gladys Skillern.
That was back when, was it lights,
Yes.
electricity?
Yes. That's
Yeah.
the one.
Played football with leather helmets, yeah. So 60-plus years from now, I expect those kids to be able to name who their teachers were.
I'm not sure I could do that right now.
I can name every one of my grade teachers.
I can remember my grade school
I can
teachers
remember every
too.
one of
I
you.
love
Probably
them
can remember
all.
all yours. No, you can't.
I remember the bad ones with me. Mrs. Coleman gave me a spanking.
Back in the
I got
day.
lipstick on my patrol boy deal. I was kicked out of patrol. I remember. That's bad when you get kicked out of patrol.
That is.
Okay.
coming,
it-
parents.
Thank you very much. Betty, it's my understanding we had no one sign up for comments from the public. Okay, skipping right on to that, we'll go to the superintendent's report with potential board discussions.
All right, tonight I just want to share a little bit of information on our legislative update in regard to bills for common education. And just to let you know of some important dates that are coming up, April 11th happens to be this week. It's the last day for bills to be heard in committee in the opposite house, with the exception of the Appropriations and Budget Committee. And so this Thursday is the next major deadline for bills to remain alive. And our administrative COSA, OSSBA groups are tracking over 100 common education bills, and I'm going to give an update, not of all 100 tonight, so don't worry about that. April 25th is the last day for a bill to be heard in the opposite house. And then obviously, May 31st is the last day of session. And I'm not going to read all these to you, but the governor has signed into law House Bill 1050. And this actually gives schools the flexibility for a teacher to be employed as a substitute from previously 90 days to 130 days if they have a lapsed or expired certificate or at least a bachelor's degree. That's without, from 90 days to 135. If they have a lapsed or expired certificate, that number of days has increased from 100 to 145. And this will go into effect November 1, 2019. And I will tell you, coming from HR, we had to track those days. We had no one that got close to those 90 days. But this does give schools the flexibility, particularly smaller schools that don't have a lot of substitutes, to increase the number of days that a sub can work. Obviously, if a substitute has a current standard certificate, they can teach all year long. Now, something that you need to note is this bill will not change the SPED substitute requirements. Currently, a teacher cannot be assigned to the same assignment for a SPED position for more than 15 consecutive or 30 total school days during a school year. Now, we're in a position right now that we have someone substituting long-term in a special ed class who had to do training. So there is some in-service training to be done through the State Board of Education that can meet the requirements for this regulation. So either the substitute has to be certified in special ed or has to do some in-service training, and that's not a lot of days. Also, that's been signed into law beginning the 2021 school year. It requires school districts to offer teachers professional development program about dyslexia once per year, starting 2021. And the State Department will guide us in the minimum requirements, the training, the needs for students, and this has been signed by Governor Stitt on April 4th. Currently, students can receive support and be diagnosed with dyslexia only through OU Children's Medical Center. So the next I'm going to share some bill highlights which comes with the price tag with estimated costs. House Bill 1780 provides for a $1,200 teacher pay increase for a total of $70 million. Now, there is some talk in the Senate that the Senate would like to give this $1,200 per teacher back to the districts to use flexibly. Just add it back into the formula, and then it's up to districts to decide where that $1,200 will go to. So we'll see how that plays out. House Bill 2470 is the taxable compensation for certified personnel who do not participate in the health care plan. So currently, a certified teacher who does not take our health insurance, the state health insurance, who can prove they have health insurance elsewhere, receive an in lieu of amount of $69. Period. So it's a much better value to take the health insurance. What is the health insurance now, Curtis? About $679, something like that? Goes up all the time. Now, if they opt out of the health insurance, they're talking about compensating, taxable compensation for up to $300 rather than $69 for certified staff. That would be a cost of $23 million. This is laid over in the Senate Appropriations as of April 3rd, and the reason there's a concern about this is if more people pull out of our state insurance, how will that support our state insurance? Will it affect the group insurance? So that has been laid over. House Bill 2502 gives a $1,000 tax credit for teachers based upon eligible classroom purchases. Now, the problem with this is now teachers can claim $250, no questions asked. This would require the teacher to determine the law's definition of what is eligible, and they would have to save the receipts. So it would actually only benefit teachers whose tax liability is greater than $1,000. Then finally, 1781 allows districts to pay interns. And when I say interns, these are like people who are doing their student teaching with us and not like at full salary rate, but currently we can't even pay them substitute rate. If they cover a class for us, there has to be a certified teacher in the room, and we can no longer pay them. But with the extreme teacher shortage, that bill is on the table. Now, this one's a big one, and I really don't know how I feel about this, and I don't think anybody else does, because we really don't know how much it's going to affect us. This would make some changes to the funding formula, and it would change bilingual to English learner for the purposes of state funding. And it would give a higher weight for several items, but lower weights for other items. So speech or language impairment would have a 0.05 weight for the next school year and a 0.15 weight each year thereafter. And currently the weight is 0.05. So there's not going to be any benefit next year, but it would increase to 0.15 if this passes. The next year. For English learners, that would help us. We have more EL students year after year. Right now, it would be a 0.25 weight for this next coming school year and 0.50 each year thereafter. Currently, the weight for bilingual is 0.25. Economically disadvantaged. This is a big one for lots of schools and for the state of Oklahoma. For next year, the weight for students, low-income students, would be 0.25, then 0.33 for 2021, 0.41 for 21-22, and 0.5 for each year thereafter. Currently, it's at 0.25. Now, that all sounds well and good, and we would have more money into the formula, but here's the rest of the story. So, half-day early childhood is would change to 0.6. It's currently 0.7, so we'd have a decrease there. Full-day early childhood would change to 1.2, and it's currently 1.3. Full-day kindergarten, and this is the big one, it would go to a 1.0 weight, and it was like a 1.5 weight. So instead of $4,500, we'd get $3,000 basically for full-day kindergarten, and that's a pretty stable weight. We have lots of kindergartners, so that's kind of scary there. So it kind of offsets our increases, and no one really knows. First through eighth grade would be a 1.0, and previously in the funding formula, it was 1.351. You see that list of weights out there? That was like K and 1, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 5 and 6. Now it's first through eighth would be a 1.0. So we would definitely lose a little bit of weight to the formula there. Ninth through 12th grade would maintain 1.2. It's currently a 1.2. Out-of-home placement would be a 1.5 across the board. It was 1.5, 1.7, 1.9, depending on what grade the student was in. So this bill has passed out of the House Appropriations and Budget Education Committee. The title is off, and the state is predicting it would be a cost of about $60 million. And then there's another bill, Senate Bill 192, that would eliminate transportation aid for school districts that are totally off the formula. And we have some school districts that are totally off the formula. Their ad valorem outweighs their foundation aid, so their ad valorem tax would pay more than what they get from foundation aid, but they still receive transportation aid, and that would go back into the formula for other districts. Here's a big one, school calendars, days and hours, and this is Senate Bill 441, and this was actually authored to answer the 4-day school week. That's been a big controversy in the state. And beginning, not next year, but with the 2021 school year, we can adopt, and I say we, districts can adopt 1,080 hours with no minimum amount of days of instruction per school year if they can prove that they're meeting the minimum guidelines for student performance and they're saving money by going a 4-day week. And I talked to you all about the school report cards last month. There's not a lot of schools out there that are on a 4-day week who are maintaining high performance. One that's pretty close to us that's doing pretty well across the board as of 17-18 is Morrison. They do a 4-day week. So the state would have to determine if they could continue on with the 4-day week if they were showing minimum performance and cost savings. If a school adopts a school hours policy with at least 165 days of instruction, the school must receive permission from the State Board of Education, and we do. We have the 1080 hours, and we receive permission to do that, but we do not have to meet the minimum guidelines. So for 4-day districts, the average number of instructional days happens to be 146. So if a district is not meeting the performance in the savings guidelines, it's going to be hard for them to go 146 days. They won't. They'll have to go 165 days. Now, they may choose to do a 4-day week throughout June and July. We'd see how that goes. Then this just says the Oklahoma School for the Blind and the Oklahoma School for the Deaf are exempt, except if they go the 1080 hours, they have to receive special permission from the state, which is just a given. This has been approved by the Senate, and it is on the House Rules Committee agenda for tomorrow at 10:30, so we'll see where this goes. As you know, we've had this discussion. The 4-day week schools around us are a big draw to our educators. They like working in the 4-day school weeks, and it's tough when we're in the severe teacher shortage. Okay, this one is really wordy, but let me tell you about it. This bill passed out of the House Appropriations and Budget Education Committee in answer to the House Bill 1017 requirements. And if you'll remember, when House Bill 1017 passed, when we reached a certain portion into the funding formula, we would have to go back to class size limits, and we would have to meet media materials, and we would have to establish a textbook committee and an advisory council. The moratorium was put on that because we've been such in a crisis with our per pupil funding. It's been cut year after year after year. Well, with the teacher pay raise, it put us back up at that threshold. This bill just actually says that we will have to meet those requirements when our per pupil expenditures match the regional average. And our region is Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, New Mexico, and Texas. So this is just a protection from those class size limits and other things. Class size limits are the big thing. We're working on that, as you know, in our district anyway, but with the teacher shortage crises, it would put a burden on Oklahoma schools to meet those class size limits as of now. I think there's still 603 positions unfilled in the state of Oklahoma. So that just exempts us there. Then this is a big one for all districts, for all common ed public schools, brick and mortar public schools. This is 1395. This is financial transparency for all schools, including virtual charters. And this would be public virtual charters as well. It passed committee on 402. This is really necessary, especially for financial transparency. There would have to be board training. They would be subject to audits. And the big thing right now on virtual charter schools is they do not have to have their teachers have their teaching certificate on file. So if one of our teachers went to another public school district in Oklahoma, they would have to have their certificate before they went to work there, and we would not release that certificate unless we had a replacement. We would hold that certificate. Now, if they go to Texas or Kansas, they don't need their Oklahoma certificate. But now they could walk out tomorrow and go to Epic, and they would not need that certificate. We would hold it, but they wouldn't need it. They could still go to work for Epic. So that's real important to public schools. Some more bill highlights. These are just a couple. Both of these bills would add reporting requirements and transparency for programs that would help provide millions of dollars in private school tuition subsidies. House Bill 1230 has to do with the Lindsay Nicole Henry funds. And right now, these voucher commitments for this fiscal year alone are expected to bring in nearly $6 million for a cumulative total of $24 million. And even though there's growing costs, there's really not a lot of accountability and transparency about where this money is going and who is being served. As far as 1247, this is the tax credit voucher accountability and reporting. This has been laid over. And Oklahoma's tax credit scholarship is really lightly monitored. And we really don't know if the organizations that are being awarded these scholarships are meeting legal requirements. And the reason this is held over, there is now an amendment to this bill that would redefine low-income students, and it would potentially reduce the Act's safeguards to ensure that our low-income families are benefiting from tax credit vouchers. So that one has been laid over. Here's some bills relating to instruction. House Bill 1018 requires instruction on HIV, AIDS, and related issues for students in grade 5 through 12. House Bill 1364 actually makes available career readiness assessments to school districts for use with 12th grade students. That's if funding is available. Senate Bill 009 requires a half unit of U.S. government to be taken in 11th or 12th grade and removing the U.S. history assessment from the statewide student assessment system, OSTP. Senate Bill 593 requires a rubric for computer science programs for school. And additionally, if funds are available, we have to have professional learning opportunities for computer science courses and a related grant program. And then Senate Bill 601 amends the Reading Sufficiency Act. And previously, we had to have 90 minutes of an uninterrupted reading block for RSA. The verbiage has been changed now so that it says we have a well-rounded education that focuses on building deep foundations in reading and math. So they could integrate science standards, social studies standards, as long as they're focusing on reading and mathematics. So that would be a change to the Reading Sufficiency Act. We still have some advocacy dates out there. Our local Ponca City ACT teacher advocacy dates are remaining. They've been doing this twice a month. April 9th, we have tomorrow, April 23rd, May 7th, and May 14th. And then throughout the state, we have COSA legislative briefings every Wednesday at the COSA office. It's at 9 a.m. And they've also given us the opportunity to log in via Zoom. But so many people go and visit with their legislators. What's good about our legislators in Ponca City is I talk to Senator Coleman and Representative Luttrell 3 times a week each, probably. So we have a good relationship with our local people. And they send me questions on Facebook and text. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? The one that I'm most nervous about is the change to the funding formula. Everybody's trying to figure out what that would mean to them. And Sean Heim at OSSBA said, don't try to figure it out. You won't be able to figure it out. So we'll see how that works out for us. What could happen is that could benefit the larger schools that have a lot of EL students and low-income students. Any questions?
Questions for Shelley? Okay, moving right along. The next item is the consent agenda, which talks about the agenda with commentary, the minutes from previous meetings, both of them, the emergency meeting and the regular meeting, and contracts agreements under $10,000. We talked about all these in the Finance Committee. Don and I attended a very thorough briefing on Assemble this afternoon. If anybody's got any, or this morning, anybody got any questions, we can talk about that. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Have a motion from Don. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
A second from Judy. Have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Nancy.
Nancy, I'm sorry.
Nancy right here.
Yeah. Any other comments? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye. 8.1, consider and take action on the following district financial reports. Again, we talked about all these in the Finance Committee. Brenda and Jan did a good job explaining them. If nobody has any comments, I'd accept a motion to accept the
I'll make a motion to approve
district
8.1.
financial reports. Have a motion from Don. Second? Second from David. Comments or questions? Not, call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 8.2, consider and take action on the following, and I'll give you a brief synopsis of each of these, and then we'll ask for a motion or comments on each one. Contract with Municipal Accounting Systems for Software Service Agreement. This is item A. Same price as last year. This is an accounting system that Brenda and the staff uses that really runs the whole accounting system for the school systems. B, an agreement with Pinnacle Business Systems for some VMware maintenance. This was the one that the Jason and crew moved from HP to Pinnacle this year, saved us about $25,000 in cost a year going from HP to Pinnacle to do basically the same thing. C, ratification agreement on the employment of Stephen McDonald and Associates as our financial consultant. As we all know, we have to pay them when they file issuance of general obligation bonds for us. The dollar amount is based on the amount of bonds that he sells for us. D, an agreement with the Gallup Incorporated for Teacher Insight and Principal Insight. This is a software program used to interview prospective employees. It's the same dollars as previous years. E, an agreement with Jostens for the 2020 yearbook. It's about $36,000. We are reimbursed. It comes from activity funds. As students buy the yearbooks, then the school system is reimbursed for that money. F, an agreement with Frontline Education for management of absence and substitute time and attendance and proactive recruiting. This is the renewal of software used by Curtis and crew in HR. It combines 2 different programs into one. It also helps in the recruiting of new employees. G, an agreement with Jeff and Craig Cheer Camp. This comes from an activity fund for the varsity and the junior high cheerleaders to go to a camp during the month of June for cheerleading, and it is also paid for from an activity fund. So unless we have questions, I would look for a motion to approve 8.2 in its entirety.
I move that we approve 8.2 A through G.
Okay, I have a motion from David. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Don. Comments or questions? No comments or questions. Call for the vote. Jan?
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Recommended action for 8.3 to accept the bids for the Washington Elementary Phase 2 remodel and addition project in the amount of $119,000, $373.17. This was the one, isn't it, Brett, that we had to rebid 2 or 3 things?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve
One
it.
of them we took quotes, and then we took 2 bids.
Okay.
That were over 50 at the time.
Okay, we have a motion from Don to approve 8.3. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Second from David. Comments or questions? Call for the vote.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Motion carries. 8.4, consider and take action to accept the guaranteed maximum price for the following project. We have 2 projects, one being the Washington Elementary Phase 2, and we also have the Sullen Stadium North Fence. I do have a question personally on both of these, and Ross is here so he can address the first one. What is the timing on this project, completion-wise?
5 months, so completion before school next year.
Okay, so if we don't approve the GMP, does that really slow the project down? Or the project was approved in the bid, wasn't it?
We, the original approved everything but the 3 items that we redid.
But we just approved those.
Right.
So all we're doing here is approving the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. And I know, for those that haven't heard, there's been a whole lot of discussions today on the guaranteed maximum price, particularly the general conditions, what's in it, what's not in it, for both this project and the one for the north fences. But will either project be slowed down if we don't approve the GMP? Or, well, your project, you can't obviously speak for Rick Scott.
That is a great question.
Well, I'm sure it's going to slow down if you're not going to approve it. They can't do any work.
No, but all we're approving is really the GMP, and we're not slowing the project down, I
No,
don't
you
think, are
are.
we?
You're slowing the whole deal down.
I don't know, that would be Ross's, I think, answer.
Well, if the GMP's not approved, then we're not
They're not working.
technically approved to do the work. So, yeah.
The GMP includes their fees, so that wouldn't be approved, so they would stop working. All we've done so far is just approve the sub-bids.
So this was 5 months starting March?
Right after spring break.
March, April, May, June, July.
So it's 1st of August. I think the contract documents call out
I think it's the 12th, isn't it?
August. Well, we're to be done before then, substantially complete before then, like August 1. Does that sound right, Brett? Yes.
Maybe that's what it was. I remember you were talking about it.
So in your particular project, Washington wouldn't be ready for school to start if we don't approve it? Is that,
Would this go another month?
Unless we had a special meeting.
We lose a month, yeah.
and Rick Scott's not here, so Brett, you got to answer for them. What's the time frame on the Sullivan's fence project? But how long is it? I mean, it's not going to take 5 months to put in a fence.
No, they could go off.
I mean, that's a month project, I would guess.
Well, you've got lead time with the fence getting here, so that usually takes a long time, and then they put it in, so you've got a month and a half, 2 months before it gets complete, before football season.
Yeah, and there's, all we're really caring about is football season.
Correct.
Comments or questions on this?
No, I just make a move, we can approve the GMP so we can get this project going and out of the way.
For both A and B?
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion for me.
Yeah, I've got a motion from Don to approve A and B. From my personal perspective, I can see Ross's concern that we definitely want school to open on time. I'm not so sure that the fence project couldn't take a month's delay right now. But I don't know. I mean, really what we're talking about is what all's included in the general conditions. I mean, I've now seen a long list from both projects, and there were some things that kind of caught me off guard that I did not expect in there. So I think there's going to be a lot more discussions on both those two, at least for future projects. So we have a motion on the floor to approve both A and B under 8.4. Do I have a second?
Can we not wait and then have a special meeting, or?
Well, we stop now, and they're working.
Okay.
I mean, what we're into now, if we don't approve at least A, school probably won't start, the building won't be ready by the time school starts at Washington. So to me, that is a very critical one that we need to have school going. The fence might be a different decision. The fence is not that big amount, well, it's bigger than I like, but there's a lot in it. I wish Rick Scott would be in here, construction, but.
Brett.
Request that you have a special meeting on the 24th of this month to approve the bids for the Howell Auditorium, because we've got to get that started. So you have an option for a special board meeting then, instead of waiting a full month.
Or we could just go ahead and approve them both and then worry about general conditions in the future, on future projects.
I think we should, I'll second it, so we can, but we got to get better.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve both A and B. Any other discussion on these two items? Call for the vote, Jan.
Mrs. Zimmershed.
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid.
Aye.
Mr. Newsom.
Aye.
Mr. Riley.
Aye. A and B are both approved on 8.4. 8.5, consider and take action to accept the resolution for schools and libraries universal. That's the E-rate funding. It's my understanding, Jason, this is the one that we pay an organization to get us a better discount on some of our communication cost.
Basically, this is a requirement for E-rate, so we say that we're going to pay our bills when we get our bills. The only thing we really put in for this year was our internet funding.
Right.
For most years, like this last year, I always write a PO just in case, but I haven't been paid anything because between the federal funding and the state's USF fund, it's all been paid, but we always write a PO just in case something happens. That's all it's saying. If there is a bill that comes in, we use that, we would actually pay our bills.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve 8.5?
I move that we approve 8.5.
Motion from David, a second.
I'll second.
Second from Nancy. Comments or questions? Jackson, if not, call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid.
Aye.
Mr. Newsom.
Aye.
Mr. Riley.
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed.
Aye.
Motion carries. 8.6, consider and take action on the recognition of May 6th through 10 as Teacher Appreciation Week. Obviously, we like the teachers. Obviously, we appreciate them. So what else you want to say, Shelley?
We couldn't do this job without them, and I think that we need to take this time to honor our teachers, and it's, you always do it each year, so it's just a formal resolution.
I think it's a very good idea. So do I have a motion to approve 8.6?
I motion to approve 8.6.
Okay, I have a motion from Nancy, a second.
We should do a whole month.
Second from David. Call for the vote.
Mr. Newsom.
Aye.
Mr. Riley.
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed.
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid.
Aye.
Motion carries. 8.7, to convene an executive session for the following purposes: discuss the possible termination, reassignment, resignation, and employment of personnel on the attached detailed personnel report, to discuss the employment of building principals, which are later in the agenda, to discuss negotiations, and to discuss confidential conversations with the board's attorney concerning pending claims and litigations. Do we need an executive session? We do. Do I have a motion to approve? To move to executive session?
I move to go to
Okay,
executive
we have a
session.
motion from Nancy, a second.
Second.
Second from Dawn. Vote?
Mr. Newsom.
Aye.
Mr. Riley.
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed.
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid.
Aye.
Now in executive session.
This is Wes.
Contracts for the 2019-2020 school year. We just talked about all the principals that are on the list. I'll look for a motion to approve 8.10.
I move to approve 810.
I have a motion from David and a second from
Nancy.
Nancy. Call for the vote.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
811, consider and take action on recommendations for termination, assignment, resignations, and employment of personnel, which we just discussed. I will look for a motion on 8.11.
I motion 8.11.
We have a motion from Nancy
Second.
and a second from David. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye. Motion carries. Consider and take action on the school's calendar changes for 2018-19 that Shelley explained to us, that we've talked about in the committee. Any comments or questions, or anybody want to say anything about it?
Motion approved.
If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve it.
Don did, and I'm second.
Don made the motion, David seconded. Call for the vote.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye. 813, consider and take action to declare April 19th as a paid holiday for all district employees.
A motion to approve 8.13.
Motion to approve from Don,
Second.
second from David. Call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Motion carries, and April 19th, Good Friday, will be a paid holiday for all employees. Nobody come to work. Number 9, any new business?
No new business.
I have no new business. Number 10, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Newsom?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Motion approved, adjourned.
Hey, we're gavelled out. Teachers, Curtis